Have you ever thought what it's like to live like a king or be a king? Have the luxuries, the responsibility, the importance of the title to be a king of a nation, king of the world, or king of something meaningful? I think a title like this holds great significance in the world, in many countries like Britain, many countries that do have kings and queens or royal families. And I think royal families or kings, it's like being chosen by God in a sense. And in a lot of religions, most of these families are interpreted to be chosen by God, having the great importance to be out of the millions, billions of people, you are the chosen one. You're like the main character out of these many people when you get to lead. I think many of us have dreamed of being a king or queen and being someone of great importance, someone who has a presence that matters, someone whose ideals carry weight. And this video is not just for the guys. This is also for the ladies, okay? You can also be queens, and there's many queens out there. So I'm not leaving you out. So when I say king, it's reference to royal families or royalty in a sense. And you can interpret this video the same way as the guys will. And before I get into the video, I'd like to thank all the subscribers. Thank you for 100 subscribers. And thank you for sharing, liking the video, watching it, even if it's for 1 minute or 2 minutes. I just thank you for watching this video and watching my other videos, but thank you for just being here on this journey. And hopefully you take something from my videos, but I greatly appreciate everyone that has subscribed or anyone that is going to subscribe. I just want to thank you, and I hope you enjoy this video. So what do I mean when I say treat yourself like a king and see what happens? I think before we get into that, what, in your opinion, what is a king? Give you a second. For most English-speaking people, kings and queens, we tend to think about the royal family. So we think about, recently we have King Charles, and before we had Queen Elizabeth. We tend to think about the British royal family. And in terms of what the definition of a king is, in simple terms, it's a male monarch or supreme ruler of a nation or territory. And when I thought about kings and queens, my mind went back to history lessons about King Henry VIII. And if you watch Horrible History when you were young, there was a famous song which was Divorced, Beheaded, Survived. I can't remember. Henry VIII and our 6 sorry wives. Some may say I ruined their lives. If you do know that tune, let me know down in the comments. But that's what my mind went to. So I thought about King Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth, and in terms of them as a whole, or kings and queens, they are some of the most important people in history. Their leadership changed history. People pledge allegiance to them because how symbolic in their importance is throughout history and how they carry themselves. And when thinking about this, it kind of takes me down memory lane, or just makes me start thinking about what does royalty carry, or what's the importance, or how did these figures carry themselves. I think depending where you're from, depending what you're taught, I think the main thing that we're taught is that royalty is something that you're born into. It's a privilege that's passed down through generations. And by me stating this, you might think, how can I become a king and queen? I'm just an ordinary person. I'm not born into royalty. I'm nowhere near that in terms of that. I think this is where it gets interesting, or the idea of my video comes from. I think it's not about thinking you're above anyone. And I think it's not thinking that you are the supreme ruler and all this. I think it's understanding what a king represents and what, in terms of the title itself, represents to myself. And this is just going to be based on my interpretation. I think a king represents their discipline, their character, their standards, and how they carry themselves. I think the importance of kings and queens has changed over the years. Years ago, they were probably the most important, most powerful figures now and before, but now it has changed. A lot of people are saying, in terms in today's society, I think billionaires are kings and queens. And in my opinion, I think a lot of people today now are the same status as kings and queens. And I think their behaviors now are, I think if you look at throughout history, there's great kings and queens and terrible kings. But in terms of what I think these characteristics or how a king carries himself, I think these are just still human traits, and they are traits that every person can have and a potential to have, because I believe that billionaires and people today's society, celebrities, in the standard in my way of thinking, they are kings and queens to someone. And let me ask you a question. What makes a great king? I think personally, a king, or makes a great king, is a king represents a kingdom, their people. A king rules with authority, but also with responsibility. And if we look out through history, there's great kings that have conquered lands, shaped the world, but their character in terms of their traits, I think if we look out throughout history, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, many other figures, they are individuals that have traits that I think that are obtainable. And I think a lot of people today use those certain traits in their profession or their fields or in their day-to-day life. With my perspective with this, I think with kings and queens, I think it is a title. However, I believe a lot of people are kings and queens respectively. And I think the reason why I say this is because as kings, you have kingdoms. And I think you, the person watching this video, or everyone in the world has a kingdom. And that may be your responsibilities, your family, the people you lead depend on you. And in a sense, you take that leadership role without the crown or with the other things that come with the traditional kings and queens. So we all have kingdoms that we need to protect and provide for. At the end of the day, I think in today's society, a king is just a title. I think it has lost its traditional value over the years, but I believe anyone can obtain this essence of a king. I think as Robert Greene, I was watching in one of his interviews, he was talking about treat yourself like a king and the world will treat you as one, or follow up on you being a king. And he was talking about Elon Musk. He was talking about how Elon had Tesla was doing bad, and however the way he conducted himself was like a king, and how he spoke, how he interacted with people, the great influence that he had on these people. They believed in his success, and they, in terms of Tesla, is shut out, and Tesla's probably one of the most important companies or wealthiest companies in the world. But he highlighted Elon Musk and how he conducted himself as a king, and the influence and the belief that people had in him led to Tesla doing very well. But it's that vision that he had and how he treated himself. And through this, I was thinking, you know what? This is an interesting video to talk about, or something I would like to discuss, and maybe to give my interpretation with anime. With today's society, there's a lot of people, celebrities, people in power that are all real kings and queens that are, in a sense, tapped into this essence of being a king or queen. And I think with anime, what it does, or certain characters we see, a lot, as with the celebrities, we don't see them on a day-to-day. We can only see what we are given, or sometimes what is exposed. But I think what anime does is we see characters that have these type of kingly qualities, and we kind of get an in-depth of my perspective of how I can interpret a topic like this, and understand what, in my opinion, what these characters or these king traits and how these people carry themselves. And then I can give my perspective or interpretation of how to carry yourself like a king and see what happens. With anime, we kind of go through journeys, see characters' values, struggles. We get to, in my opinion, get to understand and analyze certain characters. And I think with certain shows, we get to see characters with king-like qualities more clear than real people, or these certain individuals that have these king qualities. And we get more into depth with it and kind of understand it more. And for myself, there is many characters that I'll go into that I have interpreted to have these king traits, and how, for example, can benefit my life or benefit yours. It's just based on the interpretation that you take from it and the qualities that you get from these characters. think in terms of anime, there's a lot of characters that you probably may think that have this king quality or carry themselves as kings. I think in terms of anime, it demonstrates certain things like leadership, standards, accountability, dreams, and conviction. I think one of the first characters that I'll go into is Zoro. I think Zoro is a very fascinating character. A lot of people say for Zoro is their favorite character just because the energy that he gives off and the way he carries himself. I think why Zoro is very fascinating, what he highlights with the king quality, or what I would say carries himself like a king. There's two things that shine for me. It's accountability and standards that he holds himself. I think Zoro, he doesn't require to be the captain of the crew, doesn't require to be a captain of anything, but it's how he carries himself in terms of the crew. Most of the time, so if you see One Piece, you would think Zoro is the captain and Luffy isn't. But understanding Zoro is understanding the role that he holds in the crew. He's that person that is one of the most reliable, but also is the voice of reason in many circumstances. I think what Zoro, in terms of what I've learned from him, or the king quality, or the character that resonates with me in terms of this topic, is because in terms of the standards, I think a lot of us believe that we have high standards, but I think with looking at it, we don't really have high standards or expectations for ourselves. So in a sense, I would say our standards are very low. I think when raising your standard, or like a character like Zoro, their standards are this. If you're not there, then they can't F with you, you know what I'm saying? And I think one of my favorite moments in One Piece, early in moments in One Piece, which is a spoiler, is the situation with Usopp. Usopp wanted to leave, disagreed with the captain, and Luffy said, yo, if you're going to leave, if this guy's going to leave, he can't come back. Like, you're friends, but I get it, but you as the captain, I hold you to this certain standard. So if you don't carry on this standard as a captain, I can't follow you. And that's the principle and the standards of him, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of us should have high standards of our time and the people that we follow and the things that we consume and the things that we put through. The standards are very important because it helps you elevate your life and the people around you. With the standard that you uphold, other people will know your standard. A lot of us allow our standards to drop for friends, family, and all those things, and kind of influences our life, and it kind of disrupts our life, you know what I'm saying? So if you hold yourself to the high standard that you believe that you are, which is your time is very valuable. A lot of us waste our time and allow people to waste our time because they don't understand the standard, the importance of your time. But if you change things like the time, the things that you consume, the things that you boot yourself, and the standard that you uphold yourself, like going to gym and all these things, the standard that you uphold is very infectious because a lot of people will start understanding what your standard is. And also a lot of things will change in your life, because if people know you have high standards, in terms of your quality of work, the things that you do in your life, in terms of where you're trying to be, a lot of other people may resonate with your standards, and that can influence your life and benefit your life in so many ways. I think one of the other characters, which is very fascinating in terms of standards, is Sanji. Sanji, in terms of, everyone knows that Sanji doesn't use his hands and he doesn't fight women. These are his core principles and standards for himself. Even though the crew required him to do so, he was saying no, not because he doesn't love his crew, doesn't respect his crew, but it's the standards and the principles that he has upheld for himself. If he was to remove those standards and principles, he wouldn't be himself. And it's understanding that you have standards and principles that you need to uphold, and if people don't respect those standards or the principles that you have, they're not the correct people for yourself, you know what I'm saying? So like, it's understanding these standards and qualities that you have and the principles that you have, you need to uphold and lift them up. To carry yourself like a king, you must have standards that people must understand. They must be like, yo, if I'm gonna speak to this, I have to make sure this time is well, because time is, in a sense, time is money, but time is essential. You waste a lot of time where people are willing. Obviously, I'm not talking about situations where family are, but I'm talking about situations where you realize yourself, like, I'm kind of wasting time, like, this person is not really doing anything for me in terms of this. And I think it's just understanding the standards and principles that are essential to yourself. I think one of the other coolest moments in terms of, I'll say, responsibility as a king or carrying yourself is taking the burden for others and understand the way you uphold. And I think one of my favorite moments is when Zoro nothing happened situation. And I think this has resonated to me, or was very important to me, because Zoro didn't have to do that. He could allow Sanji to do that. But these two characters knew that someone had to do that in terms of the crew. And both of them were willing to do so because, one, they are certain levels, or in terms of the crew, they uphold a certain standard or where they are in the crew. But it's also understanding that that Zoro did that because it was his responsibility. He didn't wait for the world to kind of save him, someone to take that. He didn't beg for the world to save him. In a sense, he said, you know what, this is what happens, I need to do this. I think a lot of us, when hardship or certain things happen, we run away from it. And I think in terms of this quality as a king, you must face things forward and go lead, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people are looking for you as leadership. And I think with this scene from Zoro, it's one of them situations where you understand that you got your kingdom in the back. They're watching. What are you going to do? Are you going to stand firm and do what's the responsibility that you have in terms of your kingdom, or are you just going to wait for someone else to take the responsibility? Another thing which Zoro has and Luffy is that these characters understand the importance of dreams, and I think a king must understand what a dream is and what their dream is. I think many great kings from past, in terms of history, all had dreams or something they believed in, and something that they will never let go. And like Luffy and Zoro, they have a dream to become this set thing. Luffy is to become the king of the pirates. However, in terms of there is other dreams that he has, and Zoro's other dream, it's not even a dream, but Zoro's conviction is to be the strongest swordsman. And it's something that can never be changed. Like, it's non-negotiable. Like, both of these understand this is something that they will do and will achieve no matter what. I think a lot of us take our dreams as like suggestions and not really important. We're willing to just, put our dreams aside. And I think with characters like Luffy and Zoro, their dream is themselves. It's what makes them them. Without their dream, it's nothing. You know what I'm saying? And I think when many kings of the past, or for example, I'll take Luffy and Zoro, is they treat themselves or treat their dreams as their future kingdom, or they treat their dreams is something that resonates with a lot of people. Your dream has to be something that people believe in. Your dream also becomes people's hopes. I think a lot of people will also get their dreams shattered because people won't believe in their dream. But I think the most important thing as a king, you must make people believe in your dream and your vision. And I think most of us, the reason why they don't believe in our dreams is because your actions, the way you carry yourself, and they don't see the conviction in that dream. And I think watching One Piece and watching these two characters, I've never questioned their dreams or the conviction of what their dreams is. Obviously, they are the main characters. However, I don't believe that you are not the main character in your life. I think watching One Piece, I'm watching their dreams already accomplished. I'm just watching their dreams and the trials and tribulations. I think in terms of life, the way you have to see it is you're the main character of your life. If people don't believe in your dream, you need to make them people believe in your dream. And you are the king, and this is your kingdom. People only believe you have the conviction. A lot of great people, they're great leaders, kings and queens. A lot of people didn't believe in a lot of their visions. However, through their conviction and what they saw, their dreams, they were like, you know what, this is going to happen, and I'm going to be there. I think a lot of us I think it's important as a king is to have a dream and a vision so people can follow. And a lot of us to let our dreams die and become not common people, but become, in a sense, trapped in a cycle that continues. But there's a lot of great individuals that become kings on the world and become kings in the desired profession, billionaires, I would say, are kings. And a lot of people believed in that person, and they made that dream happen, even though they had a lot of people that would doubt them. This anime that I'll go into is one very interesting anime in terms of two depictions of kings, or I'll say two tales of kings. And I think one by title, but also in transformation. I think the two characters I'll be talking about is Thorfinn and Canute. I think two sides of the same coin. I think these two characters are shaped differently, but in terms of you look at their lives, they are very similar. And in terms of their childhood or the way that they're brought up, changed their interpretations of life and impacted them as, I would say, as kings. I think when we look at the first character that we think about is Thorfinn. Thorfinn is the main character, but we kind of see a child being brought up in violence, saw death at a very age, become a killer, and in a sense his childhood was stolen away from him. And through that, you get to see a character only focused on revenge, and a character that is just broken in a sense. And I think with season 1, we see a lot of people say this is their favorite season. We see a lot of killing. We see Thorfinn basically in berserk mode. But then in season 2, we see, I'll say, a redemption arc. A person that made the decision on what they want to do with their life and how they want to influence or take what they learned from their own life and to break the cycle that has been going on for years. I think with Thorfinn, you get to see a person break the cycle that his father knew, and something that he finally clicked in themselves. I think a lot of us have trauma that destroys us, and now with Thorfinn we choose the opposite side. Instead of embracing our trauma and making a decision that we will not allow this trauma to dictate our life or continue a generational, I won't say curse, but generational heartbreak and trauma and all these things that go into our life. As a person that I'll say found purpose in darkness, I think a king of the qualities why Thorfinn I will say is a king, even though he's not officially a king. I think a king, in my opinion, like Thorfinn, is someone that doesn't avoid the pain. I think in terms of circumstances or situations, it's how he looks at those situations. A king can see the light at the end of the tunnel for his kingdom. I think with Thorfinn, we see a character that saw the end of the light in his kingdom and decided to break a cycle and save his kingdom. And with the next character I'll be talking about is Canute. I think Canute is, by introduction, is a character that is shielded from the world. I think some of us are shielded from the world. I think our parents do a great thing in terms of shielding their life or real life. And I think with Canute, we see a character that was shielded from the realities of, one, his kingship, but also the realities of the world that he was in. And it was kind of protected to make sure that he's all good, but also not meant to see it. But I think once he grows up, and the character that we see in season 2, or we see at the end of later season 1, is a character that is, the blindfold's kind of taken away from him. And I think with Canute, it's a character that in season 1, we realize he understands that power beats power. And he understands that for him, he understands the world, and he understands that for him to make a change in the world, he must be the one to do so. It doesn't look to God. In a sense, he kind of reflects to say, if God is doing this, there must be no God. Like, if there's brutality, killing, and all these things, like, well, why aren't you intervening? You know what I'm saying? And I think in terms of his character, we see a character that says, you know what? I want to build a utopia or build a world that I want to, but it will require a lot of sacrifice. It will require me to do a lot of dirty things. It will require me to do what real life is expecting me to do. And he understands like everything in life kind of has a cost, and a lot of power demands a lot of sacrifice, and leadership is a burden. I think with these both characters, they understand that a cycle must be broken. In terms of how they interpret it is very different, but one goes the peace route, one goes the violence route. I think they understand in terms of their kings, they understand what is required for their kingdom. I think a lot of us come from broken homes, violent environments, generation trauma, poverty, neglect, and this kind of affects how we decide our life. And I think as these two kings done, a king understands the past and looks to build a better future for themselves and for their kingdom. And I think with this, it's understanding the cycle must be broken, and it must be broken either by yourself all by yourself. I think you cannot pass on. A lot of us have a lot of trauma that's been passed on from our parents, and then if we continue in a certain life, we would try to stop that trauma and we'll try to better our children. But there's a lot of trauma that is passed on. We pass on to our children, then they continue the cycle and it goes on. If you can't do it, you're gonna expect your child to be the one that takes you out. And I think we pass on this trauma going on. And I think as a king, all these two things that they highlight for me is that you must be the one to break the cycle. You must be the one to end this trauma. You must be the one to change the way life is for yourself, your children, your future generations, and everything else. I think these characters maybe interpreted how my trauma can affect my life. However, it's what I decide to do with it and how I decide to interpret these situations. I think these characters allowed me to look as a king of my kingdom. I must take over and be the one to take responsibility to break this cycle. If I don't do it, who else will? And I think understanding with these characters is sometimes we need to remove the blindfold early and understand how the world works or how we interpret the world, and instead of running away from our trauma or the realities of life, we must be the ones to, one, break the cycle, but also understand that if it ain't us, it's no one else. You know what I'm saying? We can't pass it down our children, like for example, how our parents passed it on to us. In terms of what I would say about being the king or what these characters taught me, I think a king is a character that, or an individual that understands the world for what it truly is. You cannot expect to lead yourself or others if you refuse to confront reality or bend reality to your will. I think what Vinland Saga shows is the pain, the imbalance, and the cycles that are passed down through generations. But I think as a king, you are the one that chooses to break cycles. I think a lot of us come from broken homes, harsh environments, society that kind of sets up to fail. I think like with Thorfinn, you can see his view change, but he chooses to create a view that he wants and influence others. And with Canute, you can see that he accepted the harsh realities and wants to build his utopia and in a sense break the cycle of what's been going on. I think with kings, you are the one that has to dictate your kingdom, but also your journey. I think being a king doesn't mean being perfect, and breaking the cycle as well doesn't mean being perfect. I think it's refusing to let the past dictate your life and confronting everything that is in front of you. I think a lot of things that is the most important thing I'll say is a king is the one that takes the responsibility for his kingdom. I think there's characteristics that I'll say that are most important, or things that they embrace, are accountability, conviction, resilience, and purpose. I think purpose is very important. If you have a purpose, your kingdom will follow and will be someone that they will look after and also believe in their conviction. I think in terms of what a king is the main character of his story. A king or queen is the main character of the story. I think you, as if you're a king, you will get doubt. People will leave you. You may fail, and people may not believe in your dream or what you're going to do for the kingdom. But I think as a king, you understand that one, you start off as a prince, and one day you'll be the king that is destined. I think it's the belief that you can transform your kingdom and the people that are in your kingdom. And I think that conviction is what inspires loyalty and allows people to believe in your dream. As long as you believe in your dream or believe what you're going to do for your kingdom, people will follow suit. There may be people that may not see that, but as a king, as a leader, or an individual that is going to do this, you must be the one that they see it. You must see it before anyone else. The prosperity for your kingdom. I think treat yourself like a king and you'll begin to live that one. Not through privilege, but through principle. And I think the world will start observing you as a king if you live like the one with the principles of a king and the standards of a king.